everyone. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Pep and this is my fragrance channel, The Sentinel. Today I wanted to make a video that about something that I don't know if it gets discussed that much in fragrance circles, especially on YouTube, and I'm not even sure that it's really of that much interest to a lot of people. But I wanted to talk about the way we choose what we wear, because for those of you that are familiar with the way I talk about fragrance in particular, a lot of it sort of bypasses technical aspects and is quite intuitive about how I relate to particular fragrances. My reviews often try to incorporate a lot about the way a fragrance will make me feel. And these are all kind of sort of right side of the brain approaches to wearing fragrance. And I was thinking about how I choose what I wear every day, and I'm well aware that the way I choose my fragrance, I'm talking about, just picking what I'm deciding to wear in first thing in the morning and for the days ahead, is actually quite systematic, more left brain sort of analytical methodology that I use. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that because I know quite a few people that I'm friends with who are also fragrance enthusiasts. They will wake up and have a look at their fragrance, however it's displayed, whether it's in a cabinet, or they open some drawers and have a look at their bottles, and maybe they've woken up with a feeling that day of something that they really feel like they want to smell of, depending on how it's going to make them feel, what their connection to it, what their mood is, what the weather is like. And I kind of don't really do that at all. And so I'm going to talk about my method, and I'm going to admit that this might be quite embarrassing for me because I take a very systematic approach to the way I rotate my fragrances. So I am one of those people who document my fragrance collection, all my bottles and samples, and I keep them in a spreadsheet. Now, what I would tend to do is a couple of things. I will always try and rotate through my fragrances, whatever I'm, especially my bottles and whatever samples that I'm testing. And what that basically involves is that if I look at my spreadsheet, I'll record the last date that I wore a fragrance, and if whatever has been not worn for the longest time will be the next up on the rotation. So at the moment, I've got like 74 bottles, and probably in that rotation, I've got another 30 or 40 samples and decants. So for instance, I can go to my spreadsheet and see that the fragrance that I haven't worn for the longest time is probably something that I wore a few months ago, and I will choose to wear that for my scent of the day. And basically, I will just rotate that way. I'll reorder my spreadsheet, and tomorrow it'll be the next fragrance off the rank. There are some minor exceptions to that, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But basically, what that does for me is that it ensures that I essentially wear through my bottles at a relatively even pace. And A benefit of that really is that it allows me an opportunity to monitor how I'm feeling about particular perfumes, fragrances, and if I find that if I plan, say, the first, the next few days ahead, I usually have an idea of what I'm going to wear for the next few days based on this system. And some days I can see I'm going to wear a particular perfume and I'll actually be quite excited about the idea of wearing that fragrance. And this to me is always a good indication that I'm still loving a particular fragrance and that I'm enjoying it. And sometimes the added benefit of that is that if I see that I've got a fragrance coming up in the rotation that I'm not particularly excited about wearing, this is usually one sign that I will take note of, that maybe I need to consider whether this, if it's a bottle, whether I consider keeping this in my collection. And over the last few years, I've been doing this, and it's really helped me cull my bottles. I went from having like 120, 130 bottles at one stage. I got that down to about 60, 65, and I'm back to 75 now. And the way that I was able to choose the bottles to clean out of my collection was doing this. If I started to feel that I wasn't particularly looking forward to wearing something, then that was a surefire sign to me that I wasn't loving that fragrance. Now, I wouldn't make a snap decision to get rid of it because I've often gone through some phases where I'll wear a particular fragrance and it's just not giving me the thrill that it used to. But then if I wait a little bit and I wear it again, suddenly it smells great. And there are so many factors involved in this. So what I try and do in my spreadsheet is obviously I'll have the name of the fragrance, and I'll also try and classify, particularly to seasons/weather, and fragrance websites like Parfumo, for instance, will have a classification that you can see up on the screen now for each of their fragrance based on user voting. They will basically nominate a season that this fragrance is particularly suited to, and then you can see the aggregate score of what fragrances are suited to different seasons. Now, this is still a very individual choice based on your particular situation and even what country you might be living in. And as you can see, some people will vote a fragrance for every different season. And for me, it's going to depend on what the particular weather is on that specific day. Also, am I going to be outdoors for most of the day? Am I going to be indoors? Is it going to be air conditioned? Am I going to be mainly alone? Am I going to be in a work environment around other people? Is it a social environment where it might be a gathering or get together, or you not interacting with many people at all? So all of those things combined go into what I will choose to wear. So in the heat of summer, I'll give you an example. In the heat of summer, for instance, if it's a weekend and it's going to be hot outside and I know that I will be in and out of the house, for instance, I'll wear something that is going to feel refreshing and cooling and suited for that particular weather. And if I know I'm going to be around people, maybe something that's not going to be too much in people's faces, not going to project too much. Whereas if it is exactly the same weather and I know I'm going to be inside the house with my air conditioning on, that will not stop me from wearing something like a heavy amber, because in the conditions that I'm in, it's not going to really have too much of an effect on me. So all of those things are taken into consideration. Now, what I've been doing, what I tend to do over the last couple of years, just to make things a little bit more interesting for myself, I've been also utilizing, I guess, some kind of randomness to what I'm wearing every day. Last year, I did. I wanted to do something of an experiment, not so much an experiment, but basically just to see what perfumes, fragrances were popular for the day. And so what I did was I would go on the Basenotes website, and Basenotes has a scent of the day feature. So each Basenotes users would choose a fragrance that they were going to wear that day, and if they were recording it on Basenotes, they'd say, "This is my scent of the day." And what I would do was scroll through each of the users wearing to see what they were wearing. And as soon as I found the first one that I had a bottle of or had a sample or a decant of, I'd choose that as my scent of the day. So it was more to see over the course of that year what fragrances, I guess, I had in common with popular scent of the days on Basenotes, for instance. So that was just like a novelty thing that I did last year. And then this year I switched it up and did something different. So what I would do is follow my regular rotation as well. But at the beginning of a week, I would choose one fragrance that I would wear for each of the 7 days of that particular week. So every day I would start off with the same fragrance. And then because I nearly all the time wear two scent of the days, I later in the afternoon, once that first one had worn off, or if I'd gone to the gym and had a shower and needed something to spray on, that's when I would spray on a second fragrance, just so I wouldn't get bored all week of wearing the same fragrance. So I've kept that up all year in 2024. So we're into November now, and I'm still doing that. And next year, what I really wanted to do was be more of an intuitive fragrance chooser each day. So I am going to commit. This is kind of my New Year's fragrance resolution. I don't normally make resolutions, but I'm going to do it with fragrance, and it's actually going to be, I'm not scared, but I'm really curious to see how the year unfolds next year, because I'm going to essentially wake up, open my fragrance drawers and choose instinctively, intuitively for that particular day, for my mood at that moment. I'm just going to choose what I want to wear. And a lot of you are going to be watching this and thinking, well, that's what I do every day. And I know that I'm probably an outlier when it comes to the way I choose the fragrance that I wear. So it's going to be really interesting, but I want to be more like you, and I want to choose what I smell like each day more intuitively, more instinctively, and we'll see what happens, because I'm curious to see if there's particular fragrances that I'm going to like lean towards more often than not, and see what my most worn fragrances are throughout the year next year. So I'll start that on the 1st of January, and we'll see what happens. As an extension of this, this also helps with the way I choose what fragrances I wanted to buy. Now I'm talking specifically about rotating my samples and decants, because I generally, for the last couple of years, I've been a lot more disciplined about the fragrances that I choose to purchase as a full bottle. I very rarely impulsively blind buy, or even buy, from just smelling a test strip in a department store or whatever. I used to do that a lot more, but these days I will try and get a sample, at least minimum 2 ml sample. And before I make any decision to buy a bottle, I will finish that sample, whether I'm enjoying it or not. I will give it every chance to convince me that I've either love it, or I don't care enough about it, or that I just hate it and never want to smell it again. And over the years, I've become a lot harder to please when it comes to deciding whether a bottle is worthy to be in my collection. So that's pretty much how I decide on whether a fragrance is worth a full bottle purchase. And that kind of extends to the way I review on this channel and what goes into making a review. So if you stick around to the end of this video, I'm gonna link to a video I uploaded a few years ago now, but basically my method is still the same in the way I review. I essentially really like to test a fragrance over a long period of time, several times, before I'm comfortable with talking about it on camera. Sometimes I will give an earlier impression when I just simply don't have enough of a fragrance, but I try and make it clear that it's of how many times I've worn it and how much I've tested it when I'm talking about it as well. That's why I very rarely do, first release reviews, and I never really get the opportunity to try stuff when they're first release, because, I'm in Australia, we get stuff later, and I simply don't get sent, stuff to review straight away, and it is what it is. So I just have to deal with what I've been given. So let me know how you guys go about choosing your scent of the day, how you decide what to purchase as a full bottle, because I'm genuinely interested. I feel like not many people do it the way I do it, and I guess I just want to be more in touch with spraying on what I'm feeling rather than spraying on what I think I should spray, if that makes any sense. So thank you for watching. Always enjoy your support, and I'll see you in the next video, but don't forget to check out this one. Bye for now.